What's up, everybody? Listen, let me paint you a picture. Two people walk into the same room, same topic, same audience, and one of them has 2 degrees, 15 years of experience, and a resume that makes your LinkedIn feel inadequate. The other one, decent background, nothing extraordinary on paper, but the second person gets the contract. They get the job, they get the project, they get the promotion, they get the room. But that first person walks out thinking, what just happened? If you've ever felt like you were that first person, qualified, prepared, and still somehow managed to lose the room to someone else that was less equipped than you, stay with me for the next 30 minutes because we're about to tell you exactly what's going on. All right? Come on. If you're in the space, in the place, looking at my face, let's chat about it. Hey, everybody, who's in the place? We got Jessica here. We got Chip. Nice to see you. We've got Alahari J. Okay. Nice to see you. Fantastic. So glad that you're here. All right. Well, listen, let's jump on into this thing right now. Y'all ready? Let's do this. Here we go. Bam. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Mom, we just stopped. But that's okay. That's what happens when you go live sometimes. So listen, my friend, we are here to talk about credentials. And so it's been an amazing thing over the last few weeks, maybe month or two, where credentials have been a big topic, right? We've heard the whole Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, credentials, honorific versus academic. We've heard a lot of different thoughts and ideas about what brings influence, what creates influence, or what creates brand. The ultimate statement, though, is not so much about influence or brand. It's what creates memory. What creates memory? When you leave the room, are you memorable? Did people remember what you said? Did they remember what you stood for? Did they remember what you were sharing or what you were pitching? Was how you presented it memorable, right? People can have all of the credentials in the world, but if they are not able to be memorable, then the letters after your name or before your name don't mean a thing. Because here's the thing, credentials can answer the question, can they do the job? But they don't answer the question that matters in the room. Do I trust this person? Do I trust this person? And trust isn't built by a resume. A resume is a list of facts. It's a list of it's data, it's information, where you've worked, and maybe what you've done. And it tells us that you can do the job, but it doesn't answer the question, do I trust this person? Trust isn't built by a resume. It's not even built by a title, right? It's not built by being right all the time. Trust is built by connection. Trust is built by connection. I want you to think about the last time that you met somebody at a networking event, all right? Or you sat across from somebody in an interview or a pitch, and you just felt it, right? You were in, you believed them, and they didn't even have to finish their sentence. You just felt like, oh my gosh, I can trust this person. What was happening? What was happening in that moment? I mean, they weren't sitting there reciting their LinkedIn profile at you. They weren't saying, I'm Dr. this, or I've been in the industry for the last 15 25 years, they weren't saying all of that. They were sharing with you something real. They were sharing with you something that made you see yourself in them. And that's the gap that we want to talk about today. What is it that allows some people to be remembered and trusted and others to be okay, my son is texting me. Right? Here's most people are trained to see or lead with facts, right? The highly qualified people are trained to lead with facts and data and accomplishments because that's what got them the grade. That's what got them the job. That's what got them in the room. But once you're in that room, the rules change a little bit. And not enough of us know this, right? The rules change. And how many of you have gone to an event, a conference, and you see somebody on stage and they are reciting their laurels. They're reciting all their stuff, and immediately you shut down. But then there's somebody else that is just connecting with the crowd. So what does the person who's closing the room, owning the room, actually do differently? They're not smarter. Sometimes they're not even more charismatic. And they're certainly not born with a magic gift. Here's the simple thing that they're doing. They are leading with a story. They're leading with a story before they lead with a solution. Here's what I mean. I want you to think about maybe two financial advisors. Okay? Two financial advisors that are pitching the same client. Advisor A opens up with, I've managed over 50 million in assets. I have a fiduciary responsibility to my clients, and my average return over the last 5 years is. And advisor B says, I got into this work because my family lost everything when I was 14. And my dad didn't have anybody in his corner who actually understood what was at stake. So I became that person so nobody else has to have that conversation at a kitchen table. Same industry, same product, completely different experience. Advisor A has given you a resume. Advisor B gives you a reason to trust them. Now, here's what trips up a lot of people. They hear what I just shared, and their minds immediately say, I don't have a dramatic story like that. I don't have this deep controversy, or I don't have this crazy thing that happened. I'm a regular person. And that's exactly the problem, right? You've been waiting for a story that qualifies as interesting enough. Meanwhile, you're sitting on moments from your own life that would make rooms go completely silent, and not silent like, oh my gosh, I wish I could go home, but silent like completely in awe. Completely in awe. I was watching a video earlier today from a speaker, and the speaker, hold on one second. The speaker was sharing give me a second. Let me there we go. All right, cool. The speaker was sharing their talk. And at the beginning, they immediately started with some charts and data, and then they went into who they were, and they started to list their credentials. And as they did that, there was a group of us watching, and we only watched for about 60 seconds. And immediately, people began to zone out. I spoke up after about 45 seconds and said, can I be direct, or can I share something about this video? And everybody else said, yeah, you're probably going to say what we're already thinking. Right? This person, this speaker, immediately dove into content, and they didn't create connection. Right? And so what needs to take place is, how do people see themselves in you? And the story doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be true. And it has to be specific. And it has to make the person across from you feel like you understand something about their world. That's it. They have to know that you care. They have to know that you understand what it's like to sit in their shoes. Sit in their shoes. Sit in their seat, stand in their shoes. Right? That's the whole ball game. One story told well does more work than 10 bullet points on a slide. Simple. One story does more work than a bunch of data. Here's what I want you to do today. And when I say today, I mean today, not someday. I want you to think about why you do what you do. I want you to think about why you do what you do. Not the professional answer, the real one. I want you to go back to the moment that made it matter. I'm a professional speaker. I own a training company. I teach people, or I equip people to become better communicators. What was the moment that made me decide that mattered? What was your moment that made it matter? Maybe it was something that happened to you. Maybe it was something that you witnessed. Maybe it was a problem that you couldn't stop thinking about. I want you to write that down. I want you to write that moment down. If you are a nurse, what was the moment that made that matter? If you own an events company, what was the moment that made that matter? I had a friend who ran an events company, and her origin story, or her moment, was she went to an event and it was the most boring event. It was a wedding, actually. She went to this wedding, and it was the most boring wedding that she'd ever seen. It was painful. And she could see the looks on everybody else's faces. And in her mind, she says, oh my gosh, I could do this. I could do better than this. That look on everybody's face is painful. Imagine being a bride or a groom on that day and looking out at the audience and seeing that the entire audience was in pain because everything was so terrible. And so that was the moment. That's a story that she shares. Right? So I want you to write down that moment for you, and then just write the bones of it. Write down the bones of it. Okay? And then where you were, what happened, and what shifted. Okay, I should have had my writing device on here so we could write this on the screen, but we'll do that next time. All right, where you were, what happened, and what shifted. That is your origin story. And most people have never written this down. Most people have never, ever written this down. They think about it periodically, but they've never written it down, let alone told it out loud. That one story, that origin story, used in the right moment, will do more for your credibility than anything on your resume. I've told this story over and over again. There's an eyewear company called Warby Parker. If you go to their website, warbyparker.com, and you go to the About page, you will see a story there about a group of college students that went camping. And on the camping trip, they went hiking. One of them dropped and broke their glasses. They came back to school and tried to get new glasses, but the glasses were ridiculously expensive. And so they spent the rest of the semester squinting to be able to see the board. And they made a vow, a declaration in that moment that no one should have to be denied proper vision because it was too expensive. And so that is the origin story. That is the why for their business. What's yours? right? Does that make a difference to you now that you've heard the Warby Parker story? Yeah, it creates a human connection, and there's trust that takes place because of that, right? So I want you to think about what your origin story is, and then figure out how you can leverage that. So the questions I want you to answer are, number one, what it was, what happened, where were you, and then what shifted for you. Okay? What happened, where were you, and what shifted. That's your origin story. Okay? So now, what I just gave you is the starting point. But here's where a lot of people get stuck. They find the story and then they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to frame it, how long it should be. When do you use it? How do you tell it without rambling or going off on a tangent? So I've got an event coming up on June 9th, live virtual event coming up on Tuesday, June 9th, 6 p.m. And I want to introduce it to you. If I can actually find the website. I do have it open. All right. Yes, it's called the Story Vault Remix. And here's what it looks like. Okay, Story Vault Remix. This website, if you go to storyvaultremix.com, this event is about how to turn ordinary moments into unforgettable stories that move people to action. Right? You think you don't have good stories, but you're wrong. You're out here waiting for the dramatic moment and the near-death experience and the rock bottom, the Oprah-worthy breakthrough. Meanwhile, you spilled some coffee this morning and you've ignored a voicemail from your mom. Those are all gold stories that people are stepping over, and they don't know how to leverage them more effectively. And so that's why we're doing this event called the Story Vault Remix. All right. So I want you to go to storyvaultremix.com. As a matter of fact, I'll be sharing something with you in that event that is going to be pretty cool. I'm going to show it to you right now. There's a framework that I use for creating story. See if I can make this a little bit larger for you. So there's a framework that I use called Moment, Meaning, and Message. So you are looking for this great, grand story in your life. But what if you could take a random moment and turn it into a story? So let's look at this. I'm going to put a random moment in here saying I was drinking coffee and spilled it on my shirt. Okay, cool. I was drinking coffee and spilled it on my shirt. Let me make it a little larger. There we go. Then I'm going to go to the next step here. All right. So what's a meaning for that? Okay. Sometimes the smallest, most mundane things derail your whole morning before it even starts. How do you handle those tiny frustrations? Spill coffee, dead phone battery, missed parking spot. That sets the tone for everything else. If you can shake off the small stuff quickly, you're a lot easier to be around and a lot more effective when the real problems show up. Okay. That is a suggested meaning for this. Okay. So step one in the framework. What's the moment? Step two, what's the meaning? I can write my own meaning. This is a tool that we're developing. Okay. So now if I go to the next step, which is the message from that is option A, how you handle the small stuff is practice for the big stuff. Or the way you react to spilled coffee is the way that you will react to everything that matters. I'm going to choose option B, or you could create your own. Then I'm going to say build out my story. All right. So once I do that, now I've got a story that comes up and it says, there I was standing in my kitchen, coffee in hand, feeling like I had my morning completely under control. And then it happened. A small fumble, and suddenly there's a dark brown stain spreading across my white shirt, and I'm cursing under my breath like the world just ended. It's funny how something small can hijack your entire headspace before you've even left the house. But here's what I've noticed. The people who can laugh it off, grab a new shirt, and keep moving are the same people who stay composed when the real fires start. The ones who spiral over spilled coffee tend to spiral over everything. The way you react to spilled coffee is the way you will react to everything that matters. Listen, we started with just a random, I spilled coffee on myself, but you've attached a framework to it. And now you've got a story that is meaningful for your audience. Right. And so I share that with you. Again, that's a tool that we are developing that you will get access to at the event, our 3M Story Builder. Right. And so if you're looking for this large dramatic moment in your life, you can use the coffee moments. You can use the simple moments, the moments that you don't even think matter, and create something amazing from that. Right. As a matter of fact, how about this? If you are wanting to get access to that tool, here's what I'm going to do. Let me see if I can find the right page for you. If you go to amplifiedvoicehq.com, if you go to amplifiedvoicehq.com, right? If you go to the community section right here, if you go to the community section and you join there, it'll bring you to our Facebook community, Amplified Voice HQ. And we are already giving community members in there access to that tool. Okay. And I don't know how long we'll keep it as a free tool, but you'll at least get to play around with it for a few days and show, and you'll see how to utilize a framework to create stories, meaningful stories from mundane moments. All right. So make sure you head over to amplifiedvoicehq.com. But here's where we want you to be. We want you to jump into the Story Vault Remix event, storyvaultremix.com. And we're going to be holding that event next Tuesday, June 9th. Join us for the Story Vault Remix event. All right. So if you've got any thoughts or if you have any questions about it, do me a favor, join the community and feel free to ask those questions there so that we can get you locked in and get you understanding for this event. All right. So listen, this event is I'm excited about this event. Because it is not theory. It's not theory. It's going to be actual stories, your stories. And you'll get to utilize some structures that are going to help you connect with your audience and your prospects a lot more easily and a lot better. And when you're able to connect with people and build trust with them, guess what happens? They trust you to solve problems in their lives. In business, that means they may buy from you. Right? So come to the event and we'll help you to we'll equip you with the frameworks that you need to walk through how to leverage your story and work on it and structure it in real time. Storyvaultremix.com. And here's one thing I want you to walk away with today. I want you to walk away with this. The room isn't paying attention, or the reason the room isn't closing is not because you're not good enough. It's not because you don't know enough. The room is not closing because people don't yet feel like they know you. Connection fixes that. Story fixes that. And you have everything that you need already. So come on through. June 9th, storyvaultremix.com. Share this with somebody who needs to hear it today, because it's your time, my friend. It's your time. It's your time. Time to make a difference. All right. I'll see you soon. Peace. Go to storyvaultremix.com. See you then.